something that should be very bullish for Bitcoin miners is effectively when you plug in Bitcoin, these Bitcoin machines, you're timing the game of the next halving event and hash rate growth over time. The halving event is inevitable, though hash rate growth is potentially predictable by the amount of people building these sites. The biggest bullish indicator for Bitcoin miners is that hash rate will not increase at the same speed it was increasing in the past. And one of the reasons for that is the largest builders in the world of Bitcoin mining machines are now building AI data centers. We're both competing for the same land capacity. That's not a dilemma that we were in, 4 or 5 years. There was a crypto mining company out in China that controlled 10% of all the hash rate. They turned off overnight and transferred over to AI data centers. Now you have Marathon Digital, who owns 53,000 Bitcoin that's transferring over to building AI data centers. Now, I don't know if they're transferring over completely. It sounds like they're doing a diversification schedule, but it's still going to be less growth than it was in the past.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the AnchorPoint Podcast. I'm Joe. This is my co-founder, Austin. We're coming to you from Chicago. As a startup consulting firm, we meet some of the most interesting companies and people, and we ran into one of these guys here. Unexpectedly, this has been one of the coolest parts of our jobs, and so we're sharing that with the rest of the world. Today, we have Matthew Garland from Simple Mining. It's a Bitcoin mining company. Matt, I'd like to open it up to you. If you could tell us a little bit about your company and a little bit about your background, and we can take it from there.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. A little bit about myself. I am on the Simple Mining side, and we effectively build data centers out west. Those data centers are custom fit and built for Bitcoin mining. And we allow Bitcoin exposure to retail clients all the way from people like your neighbors and people you see in your everyday areas, all the way from high net worth individuals like family offices to public companies. At Simple Mining, I lead up pretty much our entire customer journey from sales to marketing, all the way from customer service.
Super interesting business. Bitcoin's a bit down right now in the short term, but we all know in the long term, it's been huge. You are obviously long on Bitcoin, but tell us about how you got into the business.
Sure. So back in 2016, I took a criminal studies class, and we had some different kids in the classes who experimented with what they called back then as the dark web, where you would see things like the Silk Road going on, pretty much anything you'd expect to be on Google that's filtered out. And a lot of kids in my class who were, purchasing marijuana or any sorts of drugs on there, were purchasing these drugs with Bitcoin. And I'd often ask the kids in my classes, how is that working? And the overwhelming response I'd get back from Bitcoiners back in 2016, 2018, 2019 is, oh, you don't get it. And there was this huge learning gap between a lot of individuals back then. It's something you'll experience with a lot of new up and coming softwares, even AIs. People will say you don't get it. And then there's a mass adoption period where people are more than happy to teach you about it. So I never really loved the answer of, oh, you just don't get it. So in 2020, when I graduated college, I was working for a company called ServiceNow at the time. And I had asked my brother, hey, what's this Bitcoin mining thing? And over the next 3 or 6 months, we scoured the earth. We both messaged about 300 people on LinkedIn. We reached out to people on Twitter at the time, and we were hopping on calls with every which person we could hop on. By the end of our journey, I was long past ServiceNow. I had an established career at this company called Toast, which is now public. And we had found a gentleman named Adam Haynes. Adam Haynes had 14 self-repair shops out in Iowa. And eventually people started bringing in Bitcoin miners, and they would ask, can you repair this? They're pretty similar to what computers are. And he was able to repair them and eventually open up a facility that had 40 miners. Enter me and my brother. We purchased Bitcoin miners from him. And at the time, Adam had asked us to join the team. I was at an established career at Toast. I was one of the top sales reps in the nation to a company that later IPO'd. And Nick was playing minor league baseball, making exactly what you'd expect a minor league baseball player would make. Nothing truly breakthrough. Nick went on to be his head of sales, and they went from 40 machines to 40,000 machines. They're currently operating about 150 megawatts, which will go to 500 megawatts at the end of the year. For anyone who doesn't really understand what megawatts is, that's enough power to power roughly, 500,000 homes, and, trending towards the upward limits of powering Boston or smaller cities, right? during that period, I had went to Nick's wedding about a year ago, and he had a 5-week honeymoon. I joined the team, and I helped the team go from $37 million in sales all the way to, around triple that. Can't give specific numbers just for obvious reasons, but I was glad to be along that growth journey. And now our goal, since it was kind of denied from us, is to educate individuals on what Bitcoin mining is and why it's a tax advantage way to get Bitcoin at a discount.
It's okay. I know what Bitcoin is. It's like this thing. It's worth something, right? But like, what is a Bitcoin miner?
Sure. Effectively, a Bitcoin miner almost looks like those old computers you'd see in grade school. It's like those big desktops. Desktops are thick. They have those large fans. And each of these machines have a specific algorithm. So just like you plug an AC unit into the wall and it knows to spew out cold air, these Bitcoin miners are running a specific algorithm called SHA-256. SHA-256 solves the Bitcoin algorithm. So every single day, 3.125 Bitcoin are released every single 10 minutes for 450 Bitcoin per day. That Bitcoin is proportionally split up between every single miner plugged in the world. And then you have what you call halving events. So right now there's 450 Bitcoin released, and the next halving event, 225 Bitcoin will be released. So it slowly trends down, and then the amount of Bitcoin you're getting lessens over time. Though as long as transaction fees increase over time, you're still receiving proportionate rewards to keep your miners running.
And so you effectively tripled your revenue in sales, right? As a startup ourselves who's trying to do that, right? Like, walk us through that. That's huge.
Yeah. So early days with Bitcoin mining, they have what you call MOQs, minimum order quantities, where if you wanted to mine with any of the larger players, think, Marathon Digital, for example, they're a large public company who mines Bitcoin. If you wanted to mine with them, they're probably not going to take on one machine. Now, I won't speak for them, but that's just my assumption and from what I've seen with experience. Now, if you were to mine with a company like us, we'll take minimum order quantities all the way from one machine. The reason large companies typically won't take something like this on is because there's no CRM or custom built systems for Bitcoin. If anything, if you try to use a payments provider for Bitcoin mining machines, you'll actually get denied. So 5 years ago, we went out and built a custom built solution that alerts any of our clients if their machine goes down at a moment's notice. It's all the custom built features you'd expect out of any 21st century company. That's proprietary to our company. So in the early days, it was just like, hey, how do we just find every single client in the world that just wants exposure to Bitcoin? And then there's really three main reasons you actually go and purchase a Bitcoin miner. The first reason is 100% bonus depreciation. Second reason is you effectively mine Bitcoin at a discount. These machines cost roughly $6 or $7 a day to run, and you'll mine, anywhere from $9 to $15 back. So the profit margins are extremely high. The third reason is the actual ASIC machine holds value. And in the event that Bitcoin market went up, twofold back to 120 all-time highs where we were a few months ago, you could still sell that machine at a profit and you'd be effectively mining for free. So now when we kind of circle back and say, okay, so how'd you actually double this revenue? The first way is 100% bonus depreciation lured in very high net worth individuals, family offices, athletes, celebrities, CEOs of companies who are trying to offset large capital gains taxes. A second strategy that we deployed is effectively utilizing the fact that every single person in the 21st century has social media. So whether you are the head of marketing at our company or someone who just signed on as a business development representative, you're posting on X, LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit, and roughly 75% of all of our leads came from socials. A lot of people talk about the days of, hey, AI is just going to come and replace everything. And they're probably right. But the one thing that AI can't replace in the day-to-day is mastering distribution. You could go and scrape Netflix and make a copy of it, but can you distribute it to clients in the manner that Netflix is doing? And that's what we, try to be experts at.
Tell us about like your clientele. You've got such a huge spectrum, it seems like.
Yeah. When we think about it, it really comes down to like the lead source. When we're talking like X or Twitter, we have a lot of folks that are just like everyday people, like we were chatting about earlier. They might just have a normal W-2 job, software engineer, sales executive, maybe even just like an executive assistant at a company. When we think about these higher leverage conferences, like we're going to Japan in a few weeks to, do a partnership with a company called MetaPlanet. They're the fourth largest holder of Bitcoin in the world. We were just in Dubai 2 months ago before everything that was happening in Dubai was happening. And we meet just about every walk of life you could imagine. And during some of these conferences, we've met royal families that want to build with us, people that want us to build in foreign countries. Right now, we're entirely US based just because US regulatory conditions are predictable. We don't need to worry about any war breakouts. We don't need to worry about all the uncertainties of not building in the US. So we're not opposed to it, just not building at the moment. Um, Beyond that, we work with primarily family office and CEOs that might have just sold their company or that are trying to move out of real estate rental properties and trying to diversify in Bitcoin. Because effectively, you're also getting Bitcoin at a discount beyond that depreciation.
So what challenges are you seeing right now as you continue to grow the company?
Yeah, a few of the challenges come down to one is just hiring in general. Right now, when I joined on board about 6 months ago, 9 months ago, um, I was tasked with, okay, Matt, what's our 2026 going to look like? And I sat down and I looked at support, marketing, sales, operations, every department, and I thought about all the hires we would need. Now I'm in a situation where I know there's hires I need, but there's a complex of can AI replace those employees, and do I hire them or do I wait to hire? So right now, any department that I'm managing, we're in a hiring freeze just to see how things settle out. I recently saw a conference that there's this company called blockchain.com, and they have 40 million users and 200,000 institutional clients. And the reason I bring up the institutional clients is because those are very complex clients. Um, their third best customer support agent by cell phone is an AI agent. And, it gets to
How do they
the,
measure that guy or that agent?
well, they do it by customer satisfaction score. So like
No.
effectively at the end of the call, it's like, hey, rate this call 1 out of 10. Um, a lot of people hang up, but uh, you know,
The ones that answer.
You
exactly.
think
Wow.
maybe it's AI is calling the AI agent and giving itself a good rating?
I mean, that could be it. If we're trending more towards like a Terminator environment. Uh, the other difficult area that we're running into is just misconceptions about Bitcoin and the crypto industry as a whole. What we're starting to see is you'll go on Twitter and it's like Bitcoin mining is no longer, and it's like, well, there's something called proof of work. So Bitcoin is a proof of work. The transactions are verified by miners, by real electricity into the grid. As more miners are plugged in, hash rate increases over time. If every single miner was unplugged in the world, hash rate would drop dramatically, and you would have what you would call a spam attack, where you could effectively hack the network and really overrun Bitcoin to the point where it would have no value until someone came in and overran the spam attack with good actors. People are not just running machines to be good people and you know do what's right for the Bitcoin network. Effectively, if these machines weren't profitable, the hash rate network would not be increasing over time. And as Bitcoin price drops, hash rate will also drop incrementally, so newer models can still be profitable. So anyone saying Bitcoin mining is not profitable on the internet could be factually true if they're referring to models in 2018, 2017, 2016. They would not be factually true if they were referring to models that were created this year and are currently running.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't. You guys would not be doing what you're doing. That doesn't make sense whatsoever. A couple things we touched on. AI. Let's talk about that. Right. I think AI is changing the landscape as we speak. We saw Block lay off 4,000 employees, very frankly, because they thought AI could do their jobs. Right. Um, how do you see that in your side of the field, and then like just for the future of tech in general?
Yeah. Something that should be very bullish for Bitcoin miners is effectively when you plug in Bitcoin, these Bitcoin machines, you're timing the game of the next halving event and hash rate growth over time. The halving event is inevitable. Though hash rate growth is potentially predictable by the amount of people building these sites. The biggest bullish indicator for Bitcoin miners is that hash rate will not increase at the same speed it was increasing in the past. And one of the reasons for that is the largest builders in the world of Bitcoin mining machines are now building AI data centers. We're both competing for the same land capacity, just different use cases. That's not a dilemma that we were in, 4 or 5 years ago. There was a crypto mining company out in China that controlled 10% of all the hash rate globally. They turned off overnight and transferred over to AI data centers. Now you have Marathon Digital, who owns 53,000 Bitcoin that's transferring over to building AI data centers. Now, I don't know if they're transferring over completely. It sounds like they're doing a diversification schedule, but it's still going to be less growth than it was in the past. Even a company like us, we have large AI data companies saying, hey, you have this data center. Can we energize that to, AI chips? Effectively, you have people like Elon Musk, Jensen from the video that it's like, hey, we're going to need to build hundreds of megawatts and then gigawatts, which is effectively 1,000 megawatts of capacity. Lead time to get that up and energized anywhere from like 18 to 24 months. So it's much more cost advantageous for them to reach out to a Bitcoin mining company and say, hey, we will buy that site for 3x its value and energize it overnight so we can get value from models like Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini. So where do I see the industry going? They're building, these models are only going to get stronger as they're getting more data, and they're energizing much faster than they would have been able to do in the past if there weren't Bitcoin mining companies like us. Now, our strategy as a company is we will continue to mine Bitcoin long-term and build sites for Bitcoin mining. Will we potentially build AI data centers in the future? Absolutely. But that won't change our approach as a company when it comes to Bitcoin first.
Locally, at least, AI data centers are like really running into some political problems, right? Because you can build even though we have these supply chain crunches for building the data centers and the computer parts, you can still build them faster than you can build energy facilities. So people see their electric bill going up. Have you been having the same kind of pushback for building Bitcoin data centers, or has like kind of the focus shifted towards AI and it's kind of maybe made it easier for you to develop these mining facilities?
Yeah, that's actually a really important distinction when it comes to Bitcoin mining facilities versus AI mining facilities. And they're effectively different tiers of infrastructure. When you think about a Bitcoin mining facility, we have what you would call a flexible load or demand response. What that means is just on like a really high level, if you wanted to power 100 homes, you need to produce X amount of electricity. Now, you can't produce the exact amount that's needed. You actually need to produce a surplus of around 10 or 20% in case 5 of the homes turn on air conditioning units. Now, in a more extreme event, like Winter Storm Fern that recently hit the United States, there's not going to be 5 homes that are turning their heating units on. It's going to be 5 million homes that are turning those units on. So electricity companies need much more power, and what actually happens is blackouts, right? So there's twofold of it. When you have demand response like us, that excess power, Bitcoin mining companies are using. And then in response of that reliable power, if there's a winter storm, they need 150% capacity, and we're currently using 150%, we'll turn off instantaneously, and the local residents don't lose power. Because of that, local communities that we've actually energized have been able to keep their power rates stabilized, if not actually decrease them, because the power companies are making more income. AI data centers are not like that. AI data centers need to run 100% of the time. Because of that, there's much more grid demand, and you could see electricity rates going up. What is actually starting to trend based off the State of the Union is 2 things. One, companies like Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA are actually going to start building sites off grid. So think of like solar generation, nuclear generation. We've already seen some early signs of that. The second fold of it is these companies are going to get into agreements with local communities where they'll actually take on the liability of these increased costs so residents' rates don't go up because of it. I like to say incentives predict outcomes. You've seen the largest jump in solar advancements, wind advancements, and just clean energy because no one is more incentivized for clean energy more than data centers and Bitcoin miners.